Artists' exploration of color has also meant exploration of the natural world, as pigments have been derived from plants, animal products, and minerals throughout the history of art making. From the more than 22,000 works of art in the Loeb, we'll delve into a sliver of this collection to briefly consider the possible origins of various pigments. We hope you'll be inspired to explore your natural world for color, and we hope you'll see how together, the source materials, the pigments used to create an artwork, and the meanings and interpretations of a finished work form a complex and ingenious ecosystem.
The pigments we see in most paintings throughout history are created by suspending crushed minerals or their derivatives in a liquid binder, for example egg yolks or linseed oil. Depending on the combinations of minerals used, and even how finely or coarsely they're ground, different pigments are produced. This painting of the Crucifixion from the Loeb's collection, by an artist in the circle of Northern Renaissance master Roger van der Weyden, shows the powerful and luminous effects of color made possible by oil paints. The varied greens within the verdant landscape in the foreground and background, as well as the cloaks of two figures surrounding Christ, were likely derived from materials like malachite or verdigris. Meanwhile, for the vibrant reds in the clothing of the figures surrounding Christ, the artist likely used vermilion, a pigment derived from powdered cinnabar, a toxic mercury sulfide mineral. A white pigment derived from lead is used for the highlights throughout the painting, particularly noticeable in the shiny armor at right. Blue paints could be made from either azurite, a copper-based mineral, or lapis lazuli, a semi-precious stone. The latter is used to create ultramarine, a more vibrant blue than azurite-based pigments. Ultramarine also had the advantage of retaining its intensity over time, while blues from other sources often faded or changed color. But ultramarine was often too expensive for many artists. A recent analysis by Vassar chemistry professor Joe Tansky revealed that this painting used azurite-based blues for the figure's cloak and sky. Now, artists did not always limit themselves to just paint. In fact, many painters of the Renaissance coated their works in gold leaf, or mixed gold particles into their pigments to give their works a sense of opulence and luxury. While some of the paint on this panel does contain small amounts of gold, the artist likely used a lead-based yellow pigment to simulate the effects of the more expensive material. For example, in the green and gold robe at right.
Pigments from mineral sources have proven to be the most durable and useful to artists working with paint. But textile artists benefit from another natural source, using plant-based pigments to dye yarns and threads, as we can see in the early 19th century needlework sampler by Kitsia Hawkes. In the 18th and 19th centuries, young girls made samplers to practice and demonstrate their needlework skill by documenting different stitches and pattern designs. The sampler remained a source of pride and inspiration for the maker. This beautiful sampler is just one of many needlework objects in the Loeb's collection. Textile fibers, like the ones used for making samplers, interacted well with the coloring components of plants, making plants the most beneficial source for textile artists. Looking closely at this sampler, we can see the different colors and shades of each thread, and we can make a guess as to what natural minerals might have been used to dye it. For the red and lighter pink threads that depict the flowers, there is a possibility that the artist used some plant-based pigments, as well as animal ones. Madder was a famous pigment obtained from the roots of the madder plant and was used to create ruby reds and a range of other red shades of dyeing yarns and fabrics from ancient times up through the 19th century. Brazil wood, which comes from a tropical wood, is another plant pigment that could have been used. The animal pigment could have been cochineal, which is obtained from the shell of tiny beetles. Possible sources for the yellow-brown threads include onion skins, coreopsis flowers, and weld. The green threads were probably yellow threads that were dyed a second time with indigo or wood dye. For the black threads, some possible sources of pigment include the bark of oak and elder trees.
American pop artist Edward Ruscha utilized non-traditional substances in coloring his 1970 screen print series News, Muse, Pews, Brews, Stews, Dews. The works are meant to represent what Ruscha thinks of as Englishness. So, instead of ordinary screen printing inks, Ruscha uses different materials, such as food and beverages, that hold symbolic meanings in relation to their accompanying word. News is colored with black currant pie filling and red salmon roe. Black currants are extremely dark in color and have a deep red juice. Red salmon roe is a lighter orange color. However, the print is a gradient yellow. The dye properties of a substance can wildly differ from its outside appearance. Comparatively, stews suggests a different artistic challenge with extracting color from substances, getting enough pigmentation. On a white background, the text here is dyed with crushed baked beans, caviar, fresh strawberries, cherry pie filling, mango chutney, tomato paste, daffodils, tulips, and leaves. Despite using all of these materials, the color is delicate and not as vibrant as the similar yellow color on news. From comparing this version of stews with editions in other museum collections, it's clear that Richet intended the word to fade up into view this way by manipulating the ink. By contrast, the dyes used in pews actually do look as expected and are highly pigmented. The background is inked with chocolate syrup, coffee, and chicory essence, and the text is dyed with squid ink. The chocolate, coffee, and chicory, all brown substances, create a brown dye, and the black squid ink comes out black. All in all, Ed Ruscha's screen print works are an interesting experiment in dye techniques and creation. They raise questions about the permanence of materials and about how meaning may lurk in the substances that make up a work of art. They are also a great explanation for why artists don't often play with their food.